Morning, everyone. I'm delighted to be here this morning. The theme of this conference is really near and dear to my heart because what I've found in those 30 years of pioneering new territory and leading transformational change is the more tools we have, the more technology we have to enable us, the more we still crave that reminder that at the end of the day, we're human. And so I come to you not as an academic, but as a practitioner who spent many years studying the human condition and understanding how to use that to add value and grow business. The material I'm going to share with you today, Getting Brand Communities Right, actually is built on a paper I co-authored for the Harvard Business Review back in 2009. And that was based on research that we did in 2006 and 2007 when I was head of enthusiast services at Harley Davidson. So now you might be thinking, especially the academics in the room, like, well, that's kind of lazy. I mean, you know, that's a decade-old material. Like, where's your new stuff, right? And you know, fair point. What I would say is this: that in the subsequent decade, many more companies have been founded sort of purpose first, founded on community as the growth-driving operating principle. But there are still so many who are missing the opportunity and the power of community to grow their business and to grow their brand. And so I found these principles are tried and true over time. For Harley Davidson, the company was about a break-even proposition, a couple $100 million in 1986. And by 2006, it was a $6 billion company that was incredibly profitable. A $100 investment in 1986 was worth over $23,000 23 years later. And that's a pretty good return. Now, in today's day and age, and with unicorns all around us, that may not sound like, you know, exciting numbers, but think about this. That was not a startup. That was an 80-year-old company that was completely reinventing itself. But here's the deal. I'm going to share with you the 7 rules for brand communities, and at the end of the talk, you'll tell me if you think they're still relevant. Deal? All right. So first and foremost, no silos, and what I mean by that is organizational silos. Too many companies have this notion that community is about marketing. And you know, if it's about customers, it's about marketing, or we're going to hire a community manager and entrust that person with being responsible for the community. I say no. Community is a business strategy. It's owned by everybody in the organization. That's where you get the maximum value, and that's where it's most effective in the marketplace. Now, Harley came upon this out of necessity. The company went through a near-death experience in the early 80s, and its customer base shrunk down to the point where it was the guys on the left. Right? Like, it was a small core of really hardcore bikers that stuck with the company, and Harley made the radical decision. We're going to love those bikers like nobody else wants to, right? We're going to go out there, and it's everyone's job to get out into the community and get to know them up close and personal and figure out what's going on in their lives and what they need from us, and we're going to give it to them, right? And that was a survival strategy. But an interesting thing happened. We discovered there were riders out there who wanted the brotherhood and who wanted the camaraderie that the existing motorcycle clubs offered, but they didn't want to pay the dues that it required to join some of those clubs, which were outlaw gangs, right? And so we created the Harley Owners Group, and this was a way for Harley riders, like-minded people, to get together and experience that camaraderie. But equally important, in forming that Harley Owners Group, there was respect paid to the hardcore. There was respect paid to the clubs that were already out there. So the pins and the patches and the vests were actually built on some of the norms and the practices of the existing biker clubs. And so there was a mutual respect. We didn't abandon the old while we attracted the new. This being close to the customer became a critical operating philosophy of the company. All events were staffed by employee volunteers, never outsourced to events companies. The top 200 executives were required to go to at least 2 customer events a year and come back and share stories of what they had learned. They didn't get to fly in and fly out and give a speech and away they go. It was no, ride with the people, share their stories, share the experience. And even the organization structure of the company was completely reinvented. So this is a model of the executive team. Executives who all reported to the president were organized in 3 circles with accountability to each other to force every decision to have the customer at the center. A more recent example is Airbnb. And again, interestingly, that company wasn't founded on the notion that, oh, we're going to create this amazing ecosystem and worldwide brand community, right? I mean, it was a couple guys trying to make rent. But they recognized early on that there was a community forming and that the community was a source of great power and potential for the company. So today, the CEO is also the head of community. And there's a very explicit strategy that puts the community at the center of future growth and requires everybody in the company to co-own, constantly finding new ways to serve the community, to serve the ecosystem, and to make that the center of everything that they do. So the first myth is that brand community is a marketing strategy. The truth is that it's a business strategy. Next up, serve the people. Too often, brand stewards think that a brand community is about serving the brand. And the fact is that communities are made up of people. And you got to serve the people if you're going to serve the community. Even our marketing language, think about it. We talk about targeting and segmenting and personas and consumers. It's completely dehumanizing, right? But people join communities to get their needs met. And some of those needs are practical, some of them are emotional, some of them are psychological, sometimes they change over time. But when you appreciate that a community serves the people, that's when you're able to harness its power and use it as an engine for growth. So at Harley-Davidson, over years and years, we gave people opportunities to affiliate, to express their identity, to experience mastery by learning to ride a motorcycle or learning to ride more proficiently, to go on an adventure, to have a story to tell, or even to celebrate life experiences by showing up on our headquarters doorsteps to get married, which people did on a regular basis. And you know, we could have said, not here, not the place, but why? I mean, if people love you that much, why, right? Think about Traeger. Who's familiar with the Traeger brand? Wood pellet grills? No? You've got to try it. It is magical. You can grill anything on a Traeger. Pies, cookies, cocktails. It's amazing. But Traeger has built this incredible community, and they're growing by leaps and bounds. Again, tapping into different needs that people have and meeting them all through this lens of the Traeger lifestyle. So you can celebrate your Chicago Cubs favorite sports team through a Traeger. You can be a hunter and learn to actually cook your freshly hunted game in the wild. You can be a gourmet and learn to do all these crazy gourmet things on a Traeger, and you can go to high-end culinary experiences. They're fulfilling all kinds of different needs that don't have to get met through the Traeger community, but they can get met through the Traeger community. And that's the power of this expansive thinking about what a brand community means. So it's not that it exists to serve the business, right? The brand community always exists to serve the people in it. Next, community builds brand, not the other way around. Again, may sound pretty obvious. However, this is not how everybody does it. In a lot of research that we did, we identified sort of 3 main forms of community affiliation: pools, webs, and hubs. So pools are an affiliation that's primarily about affiliating with a shared ideal or a shared set of principles. So a political party would be a pool. Apple lovers would be a pool. Sports teams would be a pool, right? It stands for something, and we all kind of affiliate within that pool. A web is about the one-to-one connection. So, in this day and age, we have lots of examples of social networks, online or offline, and that's what a web form of affiliation is about. And then a hub is a community affiliation that exists around a charismatic person. So like Beyonce fans could be a hub, right? So why does this matter? If you have a strong brand pool, as Harley-Davidson did, you need to constantly enrich it, or else it starts to fall apart, it dissipates, right? So we had a piece of marketing back in the day called The Creed, and it was this ad where riders were going down the road, and one by one the voices started joining together and kind of reciting, what it was about, right? What the experience was all about. So we took The Creed, we put it online, And then we opened it up for our community to share with us, what's your creed? What's your response to the creed? What's your response to somebody else's response to the creed, right? So there was almost like a call and response to amplify that set of values that was holding that pool together. When we designed the Harley-Davidson Museum, which actually now exists in this form in the city of Milwaukee, we intentionally engineered in opportunities to form webs within our pool of shared meaning. So for example, there are these walls where there are rivets embedded in the wall, and you could buy a rivet and you have it engraved with what you'd like to say, and it sits in the wall. And then when you go to visit your rivet and you go to visit your rivet, and we happen to find each other, side by side, and we ask each other, right? What does your rivet say? What does your rivet say? And now we form a personal connection, and we're starting to create webs of one-to-one personal connections within our pool of shared meaning. Webs within pools. The Sill is an omni-channel retailer of plants and related accessories, and full disclosure, I'm on the board of The Sill. It's a really cool company. The Sill has an amazing brand community for a pretty young company, and it's because they've recognized millennials in particular are really into plants right now. It's about wellness, it's about aesthetics. There's a thing called plant parenthood that the Sill recognized, and it's really taken off. So they've built a great community, right, already. But they have ways to also engineer the expansion of that community. So tote bags that ask me about my plants, right? So now I'm walking down the street with my tote bag. You see my tote bag, you're a plant lover, you ask me about it, and now we've made a personal connection. We're creating webs within our pool of shared meaning. Or the gift shop. In the gift shop, you can buy plant-themed jewelry. You can buy plant-themed limited edition art prints. You can buy little onesies for your babies or grandbabies that have cute sayings on them. And all of those are produced by artisans who already have their own following. And so by connecting with those hubs who already have their own following, the Sill is able to expand their pool. So the myth is build the brand and the community will follow. The truth is engineer the community and the brand will be strong. Next up, conflict is constructive. I love this rule. It's so provocative. And why it's provocative is that people are sort of naturally shy or like to shy away from conflict, right? Conflict averse. And a lot of times brand folks think, well, we don't want to put our brand at risk, so we're going to shy away from the conflict, right? We'll kind of let it happen out there and we won't engage. The reality is that we're human beings. We have conflict. And every community has conflict within it. Every family has conflict within it. So it's not whether you have conflict or not. Conflict is happening, right? It's what you do with it. How do you handle the conflict? In this case, we're celebrating it. This is a parking sign from the museum. And what are cages? Cars, right. In biker lingo, the cars are cages. And so we're celebrating, there's a demarcation here between the insiders and the outsiders, and that's a healthy kind of conflict for a community. And we're doing it in a way that messages to the bikers, hey, we get you. We're also doing it in a way that's not really offensive to the cars. Why do they care, right? So it's a healthy use of the conflict. Within a community like Harley-Davidson, you can imagine that there are many, many different flavors of people and how they show up and what they care about and what they're interested in. You have all political stripes. You have every, you name it, we've got it. So rather than trying to homogenize it, what do? You create pathways. You create pathways for people to form their subgroups within the group, to make choices. In the Harley owners group, often one city would have multiple chapters with different sort of personalities, and sometimes people would go across town or even to another state to attend a chapter that felt like home to them, and that's okay. Like, give them pathways. You can't force people to like each other, and not everyone in the community has to be the same, right? You just have to make it sort of accommodating for all the different stripes and flavors. What about this? Some conflict there. I mean, a lot of people questioned whether Nike was doing the right thing by getting in the middle of this Colin Kaepernick NFL, major conflict. But here's the thing, Nike found a way to tap into a conversation that was happening out in the world and reground it in that iconic campaign of Just Do It, and almost lift it up into something much bigger than the current moment, right? Making it about something that was true to the brand, but also, really spoke to a lot of people. And the evidence shows that they may have lost a few customers, but actually they galvanized their core and they made literally billions of dollars in the process, right? So embrace conflict. Don't shy from it. Myth, it's a love fest. Truth, smart companies embrace the conflict and they figure out how to use it to help communities thrive. Next up, everyone plays a role, right? So there's this thought that communities are mainly led by the opinion leaders or the celebrities. And the reality is a community is strong when everyone has a role to play. A lot of different research has shown us that there are around 18 different roles that are played within a strong and healthy community. And that the best communities, the most long-lasting communities, have the ability for people to play different roles over time, right? And to change roles at will. This is a subset of the roles. And you'll notice that many of the roles are sort of complementary. So a learner needs a mentor. A performer needs an audience. A storyteller needs heroes to create the content that the stories are made of. And so there's a lot of symbiosis, right, in these roles. And it's not that there's just a couple people that matter. Everyone matters. Everyone has a role to play. The design of the Harley Owners Group has in the charter a small set of required roles. They're leadership roles and they're elected, and they have term limits, right? And so what's the benefit of that? Number one, you're giving people an opportunity to have a leadership position, and often the people that fill those roles do it because they don't have a leadership opportunity in the rest of their lives. And it's actually very deeply meaningful to them to be able to be a leader within the Harley Owners Group. So there's a value exchange that's well beyond what it seems to be on the surface. And then by having it elected, different people get a chance to fulfill those leadership roles over time. And then there are a lot of optional roles where the chapter can decide, hey, we have someone with talent in photography. We have someone that's great at putting on events. We have someone that's really good at working with children. And we're going to create different kind of liaison roles or other opportunities for folks to show up and bring the best of themselves to enrich the chapter. When I was leading the customer experience design group at Lowe's, we created a project called Upskill that was aimed at energizing the employees and customers and communities around our purpose, which was to help people love where they live. And the idea behind Upskill was we would give customers an opportunity to offer themselves up to undertake a project, a small project like refreshing your bathroom or sprucing up your backyard. And then we would select projects, and we'd form a team of Lowe's employees and the customer and some experts, a designer, someone who had practical skills, for example, cutting tile and installing tile in a bathroom. And we'd come together and help that customer complete their DIY project and teach them the skills in the process. So they were skill building so that they would become more confident in doing their own home improvement projects. And we would do it as a team. It was something different for employees. It was a way for the community to get involved. It was a different way for designers and teachers and mentors to show up and engage. And then there was a component where we would celebrate the project on the Upskill website, but then we would create an opportunity for the customers who had developed these new skills to pay it forward by doing projects in the community. Right? And so you can see we very intentionally designed in the learner, the mentor, the skill-providing expert, the community liaison. So the myth is that it's all about the opinion leaders, and the truth is that communities are strongest when everyone plays a role. Next up, the tool is not the strategy. And this is such a mistake in business. It's not only about communities, right? It's always the shiny new object. It's big data, it's AI, it's augmented reality, whatever the new thing is. And it's sort of like, what are you doing about that? But the reality is that the tool needs to suit the strategy and not the other way around. When Nike for many years was a brand built on sort of a hub strategy. So we have star athletes, we celebrate them, put them on a pedestal, and then we encourage everyone to aspire to that ideal. when they launched Nike Plus, they were trying to find a different way of connecting with people one-on-one. And originally the idea was you would be able to track your performance, but it was performance toward that ideal, right? Now, when Nike Plus really took off was when they enabled the functionality to have competitions and challenges and to be able to trash talk each other, which was consistent with the Nike brand, but also like much more about the one-to-one creation of webs. So within a city, 2 teams could form a challenge and challenge each other on running. Or there was one where there was like the guys versus the gals worldwide. And they brought in that element of competition, which was true to the brand, but added a different dimension. Back to the Sill. The Sill has an amazing online following, particularly on Instagram, but also across other social channels. Now, how they drive that is almost entirely through user-generated content. They produce very little of their own. But what they do is very meticulously curate that content as they play it back to their community so that it's covering the bases with the different subgroups that exist. So you have a group that's more about aesthetics. You have a group that's more about learning and expertise, whether I'm taking in the learning or whether I want to have a platform to demonstrate my expertise. You have another group that, like I said, is really into plant parenthood. And it's like, look at my plant babies and see how they're growing and progressing. And that's part of the fun of the adventure. And so having that intentionality in terms of how the tools are used is part of creating and nurturing a thriving community. The Sill also is using retail stores in a very interesting way. So they have 2 in New York now. They have one that just opened in West Hollywood, another one coming in San Francisco. The store is not just a store, right? It's a tool to serve the community strategy. The store is a platform for customer interactions and experiences that create the webs within the pool. And the store is self-funding marketing. They pay back in almost no time, and yet they have this amazing ability to generate experiences and content and human connections in the real world, that you can't just get from the Instagram. So the myth is that online networks, or really any tool, are the centerpiece of building community, and the reality is that the tool needs to serve your strategy. All right, last one. Lose control. What do you think? Sounds good? For classic, people who grew up in marketing and brand management, this is terrifying, right? I mean, you're taught that we're going to define the brand values, we're going to define the brand voice, the look, the feel, the tone, and anything that is in any way divergent should ruthlessly be shut down. The reality is that a strong community has a lot of passion that fuels it, and you need to let that passion flourish. Now, people can choose to do very weird things with your brand. This is some Harley fringe behavior. But what you need to do is not fear the fringe, let it happen, and instead shine a light on the pieces of the community enactment, the community passion that are consistent with the core of the brand, right? And don't worry about the fringe distracting. Really, the number one way to let go of control, let the community drive the brand, and yet keep it all cohesive is through culture. So for the last 2 years, I was serving as president of Orchard Supply Hardware, a 99-store retail chain headquartered in Silicon Valley, about 4,000 employees. And we were able to make tremendous operational progress, Net Promoter Score hovering around 80, which is really world-class, a great customer experience and customer community, by transforming the culture into one that was highly empowered, where employee passion and customer passion came together to make for a fantastic experience in the store. We let employees put their nicknames on their name tags. We let them use their personal devices to help customers shop. We turned on the social channels for every single store and gave the keys to the store employees and said, you know what our brand stands for. We're going to be deeply human and intensely neighborly. You know what we're here to do. We're here to be neighbors, helping neighbors love where they live. You know what our goal is. Every customer is happy. Do the right thing. And they did. And it was great for the business. So, successful brand communities are tightly managed and controlled? No. That squelches the passion. What unleashes the passion and fuels the community's growth, that grows the business, is that they're owned by the people. Let the people loose. So now, just to wrap it up, Whether you're interested in building a brand community, whether you're just interested in growing your business, whether you just want to energize your team, I think there are 3 takeaways that hopefully everybody can use. So put people first, always. They feel the difference, and it makes all the difference in your business. Second, celebrate diversity. Let healthy conflict blossom. Don't try to over-control it. Don't let your desire for efficiency get in the way. And third, transactions are not relationships, right? Think about relationships over time and think about rich exchanges of value, because that's where the magic happens. So I thank you for spending time with me today. And with that, we may have time for questions.